Welcome to Machine Minds, where technology and humanity meet. I'm your host, Greg Tarusian, founder of Samson Rose, a recruiting and search business focused on the robotics and AI industries. The Machine Minds show is where we dive deep into the intricate world of robotics and artificial intelligence. As a staffing industry leader with a passion for the frontiers of technology, I'm pleased to be bringing you intimate conversations with the founders, investors, and trailblazers who are at the heart of the AI and robotics revolution. In each episode, we dig into their journeys, the applications of the products they're working on, and the breakthroughs that are shaping our future. Join us as we explore how these machine minds are transforming the way we live, work, and understand our world. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a tech enthusiast, or just curious about this amazing field, you'll learn something new with each episode. Let's delve into the extraordinary. Let's delve into machine minds. Hello and welcome to Machine Minds. I'm your host, Greg Tarusian, founder of Samson Rose, your robotics talent search partner. And on today's episode, I'm joined by Rishabh Agarwal, co-founder and CEO of Peer Robotics. Thanks for being on the show today, Rishabh.
Appreciate it, Greg. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. And for anyone watching this or seeing any of the clips, we are both wearing blue hoodies, not planned, complete coincidence. And I never wear hoodies when I'm doing the show. So this is great. I love it.
I mean, I'm in New Haven and it's snowing here. So.
Oh, really? Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Love that. All right, let's jump into it. Look, Rishabh, you've got this solid academic background, IIT and then University of Maryland. Was robotics always the plan, or how did you stumble into it in your journey?
So Greg, I actually come from a manufacturing family. So growing up, more than anything else, it was always like machines. My family had different kind of industries, small scale, very small scale, but they still had to deal with a lot of machines. So I would say that I got interested into that particular sector early on, and then did mechanical engineering because I was super interested into machines and wanted to make machines. Quickly realized robots are like next level machines. So it's like more fun making them. So actually, probably like first year of my undergrad, I started doing or working heavily in robotics side. And since then, I've been kind of like fascinated by every time something new comes up and the potential opens up. So yeah.
Amazing. So it was there. It was lingering under the surface until you had the realization about robotics. That's really cool. Were there any like pivotal moments during your studies that shaped the pathway to co-founding a company? Because you've got one of those unique backgrounds where you've gone straight from academia or just your studies really straight into founding a company, and it's been years now. So can you talk to us a bit about that?
Yeah, I would say that during the research work or during the time in universities, one thing I realized that robots were still very complicated. Like even for us, like people who are working or developing on these systems, making small things work was always a hassle. And along with that, I had a chance to work or see different platforms that were coming up, which was towards this area of solving that complexity and connecting it again with my background, with my family and everything, and seeing that, hey, maybe there's a way we can simplify it. And I don't see like a lot of people doing that. Like everyone is building unique solutions, really innovative stuff, but no one is working on simplifying it to small and medium scale manufacturers. So that was actually the core reason why we started. Like we just saw that there's a big potential if we simplify it, manufacturers would want it, and how can we open it up for them?
Look, before we dive into the company's journey and everything like that, let's set the stage a bit. And if you can, give us like Peer Robotics elevator pitch and what the problem is that you guys are trying to solve.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Essentially, Peer Robotics is a collaborative mobile robotics company. And I say collaborative specifically because we are making robots that can learn from humans in real time. So the idea is that how can we build something that doesn't take away human agency, but at the same time allow people on the floor to program and deploy the robots is the key. And along with that, we've been working heavily on the context, that how can we give robots the same context that humans have, so that tomorrow if we go and operate into their environment, it's not like a translation or programming that we have to do to make the robots operate in that. The context could be similar so they can learn faster. So yeah, that's what we've been doing. Very technically kind of like background oriented. We started building the software and stack first. But that being said, the focus is to simplify it so that people on the shop floor can adopt it. Like people who are already doing that job can teach the robot.
I think that really helps with the adoption, and also the one of the first hurdles that you have to overcome in those kind of environments, because people are wary of who's going to basically set this thing up, who's going to maintain it, who's going to look after it, how are we going to work around it, and educating people on what a cobot is and how they're going to work with it is probably the initial hurdle you have to overcome before you even look at like price and everything like that.
I have a very funny story. Like one big automotive player, early on, we had a chance to go and visit their production line. And they had those old AMRs, AGVs that are kind of already out there. And I asked the engineer, or like people who were using that, hey, what's your feedback? Do you like it? Is it easy? What do you like about it and what you don't like about it? And this was like a funny reaction. They're like, you know what? Like sometimes that would stop working and I have to just pull this like cord from the robot and manually drive it. And it feels like 30% of my time I'm just walking the dog in the shop floor. It was like, it was a very interesting. I was like, oh, okay, like very weird. Like I'm just walking the dog on the shop
So
floor
funny.
because they had this like wired robot
Yeah.
that they have to use for moving around. And yeah, that was like one of the few conversations which we had, which made us realize that, what ends up happening is that people use it. The robot doesn't work how people want to use it. Robot doesn't give a way for humans to work what they were already doing. And then they will shut down the robot and keep it on the side. So like, let's make sure we don't have to come into that position. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a good thing to avoid. You hear about it time and time again, like some bigger warehouses, bigger companies have their, what does someone refer to it as? Like their robot graveyard in the corner where the different ones they've tried to use or the person's already left or whatever. It's just in the corner.
Just now. Yeah, just now I had a conversation. They were like, yeah, it took us some time because someone else in their plant bought some other robot before and now they left, so the robot doesn't work. So it's just like, robots are supposed to be intelligent that they don't need humans, but it seems like it's mapped one-on-one with a person. If that person leaves, yep, not going to work.
Single point of failure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That sucks. Well, it's a good thing that you guys are leading with avoiding that and helping like mitigate that issue.
Yeah.
Obviously, every startup, has its origin story and like the where they realize like that aha moment of this is what we need to do and this is what we're trying to do. What was Peer Robotics' aha moment?
Yeah, I would say I would go back to kind of that phase where we started interacting. Like my personal research was also on human robot interaction, more on the sensors, physical sensors, tactile sensors, and all. And during some of the work that we were doing on different platforms, we realized that, hey, there's like a potential of scaling this to other industries. That was like the aha moment, to be honest, like, which is like, okay, this is not being done in that particular industry, which could open up doors for a lot of applications which are not there. Then my co-founder, Alok, when we got connected, what we also realized that the vision is opening up another door, which is not just human-robot interaction, but also the same context learning. So coupled with that, we're like, okay, there's like a winning strategy here to bring something to the customers. So that's how we started the company. I mean, the timing was bad though. Like we just started, I think we got our first lease on an office in March of 2020. So like right when they said, okay, you can't step out. So yeah, it's another funny thing. Like Alok and I, we ended up living in our office for like 2-3 months there. It's like, yeah, we can't come to office or go back and forth. So just like put some air mattresses and just stay there for some time.
It makes sense. I mean, why would you not? So obviously the timing wasn't the best when you kicked that off, but the idea seemed kind of clear to you, like the application, everything like that. When you first pitched it to other like employees or potential customers and things like that, or even just talking about it, investors, whoever it was at the early stage, what kind of reaction were you getting? Were people immediately on board? Did they understand the vision, or did you face skepticism?
Yeah, I think being a founder is a lot more to do with storytelling than anything else. And I think that's what we are learning the hard way. So long story short, of course, this space is where a lot of players already exist doing different things, right? So AMRs or mobile robots is a very old space. I mean, probably a decade old now. So definitely a lot of players are there. And for us to make sure that our clear proposition was there was a little bit challenging, like both all ends, like even customer side, we have to make sure we are giving the problem or solution very clearly and not talk about just technical differences, because that's what kind of like as engineers will always boil down to, that hey, our tech is so much better, right? Because they don't care, they just want to make sure their application runs. Same thing on the investor side. I think for us to create a distinct mark was challenging, but slowly we are seeing industry also adopting these human robot interaction for mobile robot space, and that's where we are seeing a lot more traction, and we are getting better at our storytelling so we can bring out the key aspect that why we are different, how we are different, and how we can add that value. When of course customers help, as we onboarded more customers, they saw the value, they tell our story now, so that's the most powerful.
Yeah, it's always going to be referrals and customer testimonials that, they're the most powerful. Well, I love that. I love that. Going back to the tech, you mentioned your robots learn real time from humans. It's obviously a bold claim, but I want to dig into that a little bit more. And if you can break down how it works in the most simplest terms, and how for the people that you're having work side by side with them that probably aren't technical, how you communicate what they do and how to interact with them.
Yeah, makes sense. And I mean, so it's about going back to the application, right? What are they trying to do with these robots? Most of the time, they're moving some form of objects. Let's take an example, bins or something on their shop floors. Currently, how they would be doing that is rarely there's a person just holding a bin and walking it out in the shop floor. It's mostly they're using some form of trolleys or something that they're kind of stacking the material on and then moving it out to that location. Now, factories are also unique because not every open space is an open space for to enter. So robots or people who are already working there, they follow certain guidelines, which is like walking a pathway, taking a turn only in that particular area, right? Which as humans, we know instantly when we see it, that it says walking mark, it says no go zone mark, right? So you can't enter there. Or we can see that lines that, hey, there's like cars or something might be stacked there later on. So we can't go there. But for robots, they're operating in a different context, right? So they don't understand that. So they don't have that knowledge. So our first idea was that can we mimic what humans are doing by allowing humans to show the robot how to do it? So what our robots are capable of doing is, first of all, understand that if a human is pushing the robot or not. So if a human is in vicinity and a human applies a force feedback, the robot recognizes that, hey, this is a person wanting to take control over my application, and I'll give priority to that person. So that, if the human want to take over the platform while the robot is doing something else, the human can do it, right? That was the first core area, kind of like our pattern that we worked on to make sure that how the robots can understand the human feedback. Then the idea was that once they have that control, and if they want to teach robot a certain thing, they can do that. So they can just grab the robot, walk it, and as they're walking it, just like a trolley, the robot is recording data from its lidars and cameras and the drive data to learn about that space, to learn about the motion that the human wants the robot to do. So without going on to the software layer to program the robot every single thing, they can just show the robot how to do that task, and the robot can mimic that next time onwards. But it's intelligent because it has those sensors already on board. So even if something changes in that line, some object comes along, it still knows it can avoid it and come back to its teaching that was given to it by the human, and it can carry on. So that's kind of real-time learning that we focus on.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So obviously a lot of companies, they focus on full autonomy, right? But in an environment like this with humans, cobots make a lot of sense. Have you taken this approach initially so they can learn to be autonomous, or is that just like a stepping stone? What's the end game here?
Yeah, so the robots by themselves are fully autonomous, but we always believe that you can never achieve 100%. There will be those small cases, edge cases, right? There will always be those edge cases where the robot's autonomy or intelligence would fail because simply the robot has never experienced that scenario before. That's where we want the human to take over and teach the robot or assist the robot. Hence our name, kind of peer robotics, because we want it to be peers to the humans rather than saying that we are replacing you altogether and, the robots are just going to do that job from now. No, I think robots can learn from humans. Humans can teach the robots those specific edge cases without having to go into, hey, can you teach or can you program the robot about doing this from ground up? And it makes simpler case for both of us, for customer and the company like Peer. Because now if some edge cases comes along, humans can teach the robot. And as Peer, we can still roll out the platform. The robot can go into the shop floor and start getting better and better, right? So our approach is like human first approach. Like autonomy is always going to be there, but we also recognize that there will not be full autonomy with general behavior, right? So that's the two things we are trying to balance. Like we expect robots to be general, they can do multiple things, but then we also expect them to be fully autonomous. That's like a little bit challenging. But if we bring human in the loop, we can probably achieve both of them.
Any use cases or standout cases that you can share about customers, how the robots are being used or the impact that they've had on their manufacturing floor facility?
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, there are several customers that are using different robots for different applications. And we have kind of system where multiple robots doing different applications can be deployed in the same facility. So we have a very interesting customer that has used two different types of robots and doing different applications, but somehow still connected to the entire workflow. So the beauty of the platform that we have created is that you can change the form factor in the sense that we can personalize the robot to fit the user requirement, users' kind of operations. So one customer has, or the same customer that I'm talking about has like two solutions, which is one robot is moving trolleys, the other robot is moving bins. So one robot is designed so that it can just go pick up a trolley, take it from one location to another. So they can just stack their material in that particular location, and this trolley then can go and drop it into the production line. And then the other robot, meanwhile, is taking some finished goods from a conveyor belt, dropping it into another dispatch location. So the robots still work in the same facility. For humans, they're still teaching the one robot, but they are doing different tasks. And that's how also humans do, right? Like we are not like, there's no person who just, I'm just going to move the trolley. If you give me a bin, I'm just going to drop it, right? Like it's not going to happen that way. So that's where even in future, like this is one application that is already being deployed with the customer. But another area that we are working with is building robots that can handle multiple assets, just like humans do. So current limitations are like, okay, the trolley needs to be same so that the robot can detect and move that. But then what if we can make a robot that can detect multiple different types of trolleys and move it just like a human moves that trolley? So we don't have to change existing assets of the customers. And same thing goes for pallets. The robot can pick up a pallet, whether it's American, whether it's European. It can see what kind of pallet it is, change its policies, and then help automate that operation, right? So long story short, those are the applications out there. And slowly we are collecting more kind of human training data to bring more policies and more applications on the robots.
So how do you have to modify the robot to do, like using this customer, for example, one that's doing bins, the one that's moving the trolleys? Is it just different programming you have to do when you get the robot on site, or different training mechanisms?
No, actually. So programming and deployment, entire thing is very simple, straightforward, like how they would do with any robot. The only thing changes is like we have developed the robot from a modular standpoint. Very similar analogy would be the end effector ecosystem of the manipulators. So we have these kind of like modular attachments on top of the robot, and based on the application, we can just customize that attachment. But then programming and everything on how the robots integrate, how the robots communicate, how the robots sense, nothing changes.
Right. Client to have this. So I'm just trying to understand as well, for them to have the same robot with different end effectors, in essence, doing two different tasks. Is each robot learning individually itself, or does it have like a learning or brain, a knowledge bank for that facility that all of these robots feed into? Like, would they ever cross paths and get confused that, oh wait, actually, I don't know. I can't do that.
So, like, I can't see the other one, the Spider-Man's. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what did you put in here?
Yeah. No, so they do have a centralized system. So they do talk to each other. But for the like the sharing happens on the environment data. So if you think about it, like both the robots are operating in the same environment. So the context is similar for them, but their specific role is different. So role could be defined as missions, right? Like their own operation or mission is different. And the robot will just do their own operation. It won't take up the other robot's operation, but then they would operate together in the same environment.
When they want to add another trolley robot,
Yeah.
or
They
you
can
just
just,
take it, tell it,
yeah.
this is your task, this is your mission, and it knows already because it's got
Yeah.
the data.
Correct. It can also share the mission of the other trolley robot that is already there. So they can now share because they know they have the same end effective ecosystem.
Yeah, love that. And you mentioned that you guys are focused on the small to medium sized enterprises as well, and it's often overlooked, in terms of innovation and as a customer line. What's the secret, would you say, to making automation and technology accessible for these businesses?
I mean, this is like the core reason why we started Peer Robotics. Like, how can we help small manufacturers, medium scale manufacturers? And in the end, the biggest problem is that in these companies, they don't have time or talent to automate things, right? They don't have that massive labor force of robotics engineers or professional engineers who can automate those flows. And most of the time, a lot of operations are looked by the owner, right? So the owner is probably going to be the person who's also running around handling different things as and when required, right? So if you go and tell them that, hey, I have this robotics project, their instant reaction would be like, not for me, I'm too small, right? Like their own inherent reaction is that I'm too small because, first of all, they associate it with high cost, that it's going to be something fancy, expensive. Then also, who's going to take care of it? Like same thing, one-on-one mapping for the robots and humans, which is like the true image in the market, right? Like, hey, this is how things work. So I can't have a robot unless I have someone to take care of the robot. So to solve this problem, and that's something that has been our motto, is that we have to be simple, we have to be cost effective. Like we have to make an ROI sense so that the small manufacturers can adopt it, and we have to be simple that when small manufacturers use it, they know they can work with it. Right? They don't worry about Roomba that much. Like they know they can work with Roomba now, but they do care about, or they are worried about. Same person who has a Roomba in their home would not implement a robotic system in their factory simply because they have this mindset that it's going to be super complicated and who's going to program it. So that's what we are trying to change.
See, like you mentioned, a competitive space with these bigger companies that have been around for ages, or they're well funded, etc. The angle you're taking seems to be slightly different as well, and I'm assuming part of that is like how you structure cost as well to the client. Can you talk about that? What model you use and how you make it accessible for them?
Yeah, I mean, one of the good parts is that no one is taking care about small manufacturers, so it's like a little bit open field. So we do have the opportunity to go into that and support that ecosystem. And then what we are also doing is we are working with a range of system integrators. Now that's not unique. Like historically, industries have worked in the same fashion, where system integrators are the one who are also supporting these small manufacturers. But we have started going out and working with system integrators who are doing very small things for these manufacturers, like PLC programming or conveyor systems or small, like very entry-level automation stuff, right? But with our systems, they can go in and add more value. So it's like a win-win where we work along with these system integrators that give us the access to these customer base, which we might not be able to get it because, again, those manufacturers are busy. They're engaged in their task. But these these small system integrators can help us open up that market. And for us, we are providing them systems that are simple. So they don't have to engage a massive service team or training team to even go out and start deploying these robots. So that's kind of our business strategy. Now, financial wise, like the cost effectiveness that I was mentioning, the real reason why we are cost effective is, again, because we don't need engineers to go and program the robots for massive amount of times. And then the second thing is that our system, our stack is more based on vision than those expensive sensors like LiDARs. But how we are making sure that our safety is there along with that vision system, that's our innovation, right? So vision system allows us to bring the cost to a very good kind of level, which other competitors are not able to achieve so far. And then our simplicity allows us to go in faster and come out faster so that everyone makes money in this process.
How you want to position it. It's an interesting time right now for robotics, and they keep talking about, chat GPT moment, etc. If we look ahead 5 years in the market, what do you think is going to look like? Do you see a lot of consolidation? Do you see more startups? Do you see a major shift in product type or adoption? What's your sense?
Very difficult to comment on whether more startups would come up or how this market would change. I mean, I definitely believe robotics will always attract more and more startups. That's the beauty of robotics. If anything, I do think that there will be a lot more form factors coming up. So with the availability of some of these intelligent systems and consolidation of, let's say, NVIDIA is now at a cost where you can do computation in like under $250 or something. So I do believe a lot of new applications would open up as the cost goes down. And this would mean a lot of different types of robots. I am still a little bit skeptical of a completely generalized robot, like complete kind of one-on-one replacement. I think it might happen. I do believe it might happen, but I don't think ChatGPT or any of the LLMs are showing that generalized moment yet, because most of those AI models that are being trained so far are trained on available data, which are mostly, let's say, language or visual. Robots operate on a lot different things, right? Like the integration with the infrastructure, API calls that they have to get from the customers, MES, ERP systems. And then a lot of this is like emotional, like how you look at a person to figure out whether you want to take a ride or not. Like very difficult to scale it with AI models right now. That's my take. It might change, but I do believe there will be more semi-generalized, right? Like bringing human in the loop, I think it's going to be a core driving factor. And we see this with driverless cars too, right? Like people can take over the system. When the system breaks, it alerts the user that take over it, right? So I do believe that's going to be the same way as robots also scale.
Yeah, I have this conversation at least once a week, especially about humanoids. Yeah, but to your point, point about the car, like if you have a self-driving car and it says, oh, you know what, I can't navigate this environment, or things aren't firing right, you take over. What do you do with a humanoid if it's halfway through a manufacturing line or moving something? You don't like plug your hands into it and just take over.
Yeah, there are a lot of questions with humanoids right now. I mean, again, like what people are doing in manufacturing, like that's another example. No one is lifting a pallet and moving it out, right? So yes, you can have 4 humanoids lifting each corner of a pallet of 1,000 pound, 2,000 pound, but that's probably like you would still use a pallet jack or a forklift, right? So why then have a humanoid? Like, would it drive the forklift? I mean, there are applications. And back during kind of like some of my work during the research side, we do think that there are a lot of kind of mobile manipulation applications out there. Humanoids also make sense in those applications, but I think other problems are still not solved. So if we put more kind of effort and energy into those other problems as well, it would just help the humanoid problem as well.
I think what people get caught up on is the leap to where the vision is for, or the intent is for humanoids, like an out the box general purpose robot that you just communicate what you want it to do and it does it. Like that is safe, that's reliable, that's strong, that is, all of the things that you would think a human out the box would do. But we're so far off that. And where we're at right now is the stepping stones to get there, right? It's still in a lot of ways that they're being used right now in corporate. They're like single use or dual use. They're moving something from one place to another like a human would do, the repetitive, dull task that you don't want to do day in, day out. But they're like separate. They're not working with humans. They're cornered off doing, because they're still not 100% safe. I've got a bunch of stories about that, but we won't go into it. That's another episode. But it's, step by step, they still need to learn, gather the data, be useful, and then go from there. But
So if I would be starting a humanoid company, let's just assume, right? Like the first thing would have been, how can we learn from humans by bringing them in the loop, right? So again, because there might be some applications which the robots cannot do. And there are ways. Visual telemetry is something that they use for doing that. So people are doing that. Of course, all the companies are doing that probably at this point. But I'm talking about more on the behavioral level, that how do you understand that, okay, this is the time when I have to pick this up because someone has told me or nodded me to just take this particular thing. There are factories, right, who would have different color coded things. This is for scrap, this is for dispatch. Like, how do I do that, right? How do I know what they want?
Yeah.
That's kind of going to be more important.
The intent. Yeah.
The intent.
Tough. Yeah. Especially from like visual, facial cues or tone and all of that. So it's very when you try to break it down to be a human, work alongside humans like a human, all of the subtleties that we communicate to each other to then get that over to the AI or the robot or however you want to categorize it. That's the tricky part, you know. It's coming. It's coming in time. There's so many different elements, people working on just one specific thing, whether it's like sentiment analysis or intent or like facial recognition, stuff like that, that when you put them all into one robot, I don't know how you would fit it all and for it to be cost effective and like the battery not die straight away, but it's coming, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Let's talk a bit about team, because it's something I'm very passionate about, as you know. And robotics is this crazy mix of software, hardware, AI, everything. What do you look for when you're trying to hire for Peer Robotics, you know, looking for top talent or people that are going to be right for you guys and your stage?
I mean, first of all, we have a fabulous team. Like, I think the strongest suit for Peer, more than our existing tech, is our current team that can help us scale the tech more, right? So every single one is a phenomenal engineer or operator who's been kind of in this area for now building it up, right? Like quite some time and building it up to a level. So, and we are a very small team, by the way. So it's not a massive team. It's still under 25 people. So we are very compact, very small team, and everyone pulls out the weight for 2-3 people, I would say, in general. So what we do look for is very simply problem solvers. I think there are two factors that we try to analyze on. One is that how good they are in their existing domain. Like, do they have an insight in their existing domain that help us set us apart, right? Like whether it's like a failure insight or a success insight, doesn't matter. Like if they know about things that didn't work, that is actually we were not aware about, right? Or if they know about something that scales that we were not aware about. Both are these like good, very insights that we try to look for in a person, right? That do they have the secret insight in their existing role or in their existing kind of problems that they're solving. The other thing that we look for is how open they are tackling the peripherals. So are they, and robotics is a major field because like you have to deal with machines, you have to deal with mechanical systems, you have to deal with the intelligence on the robot. There are multiple moving parts and multiple teams, right? Mechanical systems, electrical systems, intelligence on the robot, then the safety layer on the robot, like several other aspects, right? Software that people use to interact with the robot. So is that person going to be curious to go and help these peripherals and see how they can add value in that peripherals? Because what we have seen, the ideal team members are someone who do their kind of like core expertise, but then also expand it in the sense, understand what are the lacking things on the other side and how their insight can make this other team better. So that's very hard to judge in an interview. So of course, it's like somehow we have to figure out in conversations whether they are doing the same thing or not. But yeah, those are the two things we look for.
Nice. What's been the biggest hiring mistake that you've seen or even that you've made when building stuff? Yeah.
A lot. I think no one tells about it. And I joke this with my investors that I founded a robotics company so that I don't have to deal with humans, but seems like I'm only dealing with humans. So that's
like
the
role you're in.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like, so bad call there. But anyway, so the key part is that, hiring is the most important thing or the most detrimental thing that you can do to the team. So we have hired wrong. We have had those mistakes where let's say there was a lack of due diligence or lack of understanding how the fit would happen or lack of expectation setting, right? That's the most common thing, by the way, expectation settings. Other things, they happen once in a while, luck of a draw kind of thing, but you would still go by it. But expectation settings happen more often than I would have thought, right? So what I'm saying might not be what you're getting, right? So that's like the expectation or the calibration we have to do always with new hires. So that's where I think we have made a lot of mistake. But the key insight that we got is that there might be more mistakes in future is just to make sure how fast we can recognize that and how fast we can do good to both parties. So if it's not a fit, having a person linger on in your team is like a very bad decision for both the company and that person because it's a very limited time they have, like every one of us have. And then if they're not working on the problems that they also want to solve, and if they are not getting someone who is solving the problem you want them to solve, it's bad for both. So faster you make that split decision, the better it is. And it's hard. Like the first hire or first time I had to fire was a nightmare for me. It felt like I'm the worst person on this planet Earth. So it's like weird, but then I think it's important to understand that you're doing it for the right reasons for both.
Yeah, it's true. You're not doing that person that you're trying to keep on and make work any good. You're not doing them a service. Yeah. But yeah, it's tough. It is tough, especially when you care. If you care about the team, you care about the people, you've obviously know their situation, you get to know and like them. But, you know, there's a lot that's like hire slow, fire fast. If you made the wrong decision, recognize it, rectify it, and move on.
Yeah. And acknowledging is the hardest thing, right? Like if we acknowledge, I fucked up, I made a wrong decision there. Yeah. That's the key part.
It's true. Some people think, some founders think that culture is more important than skills, right? And others say it's the other way around. Technical talent trumps everything else and will make the rest work. I got my own opinion, but where do you stand on that debate?
Not biased. I think those are not something that one or the other might make it work. I think it's always have to be a fine balance. Culture evolves, so I don't think culture is something that is rigid, and I don't think it should be rigid because I don't know if I'm doing things right way today. I am open on understanding how can we make it better. So I do want people to come in and introduce different cultures in the company, especially to make it better, right? That part we can judge whether we are doing it right or wrong. The KPIs in a company's outward looking area tells us that. So that's an easier thing to judge. But I think the culture can become good or better with introducing these new team members. But having just a strong culture with lack of skills in the team, I don't think that also leads us anywhere. We can have phenomenal team that is willing to work 24/7, but we can't get things done. So, I mean...
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I think skills are definitely high up there and abilities are high up there. If you don't have it, there's no point in even interacting.
Curiosity might be the most important thing, actually. Similar to just like founders. I think if they are willing to learn more and solve more, right? That might be the most important thing.
And that is part of culture if it's embedded, but then also what you said about how our culture can evolve and change. And I'm open to people. You're looking at culture add and people bringing, instead of just a culture fit. If you're closed-minded and you're just like, we need more people like us, that think like us, that do like us, there is no growth element. But if you're always open to evolving and doing things better and learning, that's a cultural thing that you can also screen against. But it's also clear when someone doesn't mesh well with that and they're rigid and stuck in their way and think that they know everything. But yes, they need to be capable. First and foremost, you need to
be from your experience also, right? Like how many times you see people who look for companies where they can grow and what does a growth means for them? Like what do you think? Like I'm also curious about it because
from an employee standpoint, most of the people that I look for or approach, that is a key element for them because I primarily work with earlier stage companies, right? Seed to kind of Series B, C round. If you work at a larger company and you're considering a smaller company, you want growth in multiple ways. You want either a wider scope in your role, regardless of title, put that to the side, but you can put title in there, whatever, but you want more growth, more scope, more visibility, more impact. And you're not going to get that in a bigger company unless you get a much bigger role, but then parts of your role get taken away. If you're technical and you go up a level, you'll probably get less technical, you get more managerial, right? Now you've got bigger oversight, larger team, budgets, etc. If you want to get back to the tech, you got to go down. Most of the time, I'm generalizing, but it's the most of the time. So growth in terms of whether it's technical, industry-wise, knowledge, or even just seeing different parts of how a business operates, be having visibility to fundraising, having visibility to business development, the customer side, are things that people usually want when I'm approaching them. And if they don't, it's a flag for me. It doesn't have to be all of those. Not everyone wants it, but if there isn't some element that they're looking for learning, for future development, to have a greater involvement or impact, then I think the opportunities I work on probably aren't right for you. You can go to a bigger company and have a clearly defined role and look after one widget in the big picture, and great, get a good salary, and that's it. But if you want something different, if you want more, then the opportunities that I work on align with that. And you can tell very quickly when you speak to someone.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point, because in the end, it's like everyone is taking a risk. And what are they risking for? If they're clear about it, makes it easier to work together.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And they need to be aligned with that, you know? Okay, before we wrap, because I'm conscious on our time and there's a few things I want to cover with you before. What's one trend in the industry, in the robotics industry, that you're excited about, and what's one that you think's overhyped?
I mean, the most exciting thing is that the work that is happening on the open field, like the open research that is happening in this area, I think there are a lot of new phenomena, a lot of new features, a lot of new kind of applications that are coming up on these systems. The hardware is becoming cheaper. The ways to utilize the hardware is becoming simpler, right? So in the end, it allows us to make systems better. So that's a trend that kind of like, I hope it's going to continue. And same thing happens like when AI picks up, like other robotics related peripheral things pick up and it's easier. Driverless car picks up, sensors become cheaper, again, benefits robotics. The trend that I'm not that excited about or feels like it's going to derail, not anything specific, but I do believe just like vanilla integration of these LLM models with these robotic systems is actually not going to take kind of the robots far away. You know, it's like it's probably going to dampen up the real applications that someone might be working on. Like there are a few startups that are working on these unique solutions that are not there, but it's not integrated with a generative AI because it's not doing anything generative, right? So I think they might be missing out on this. Because of this trend, they might be missing out on the access to fundings or attention, which I think could be negative in a long run. But again, can't tell. There might be actually these general models that kick out tomorrow, and we both of us, everyone would be wrong here. Which is like, yeah, we don't need to be around anymore.
Changes every week. I mean, I'm blown away every week looking at the new stuff that's coming out in AI. I'm just like, oh, well, okay, I haven't even caught up with last week's stuff. So here we are.
So there's so many chatbots. Like, which one should I use? It's a very big struggle.
It's a full-time job to like research them and try and implement them. And it's been on my to-do list. Even certain ones that I'm like, okay, I know I can automate some more stuff, and I'm just like, I'll get to it eventually. Yeah. On that, you know, there's a lot of talk about AI replacing human jobs, and some say that automation leads to job loss, and others argue that it creates more opportunities, better opportunity, or better work environments for people. Where do you stand on this debate?
100% better work environment. So I think we use a lot of these kind of like GitHub Copilot and all in our company as like a tool. But we have to be very certain that it's like a tool, right? So as long as we think of it like a tool, it helps us a lot. Like it helps developers do things faster. When they do things faster, we can ship faster. When we ship faster, we can hire more developers, right? So I don't think it's in any way gonna impact the number of engineers we would have. If anything, it would just help us accelerate our development. And that's going to be the trend all over with robots, with AI. It's just that what kind of applications we are automating is going to be critical.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. So looking at your company roadmap, what's next? Are there any upcoming launches or announcements or expansions? Anything exciting you can share?
Yeah, I mean, soon we'll have some new solutions out in the market. This is something we've been working for almost 1.5, 2 years. So long time coming, but we've been working on the second level of the same human robot interaction problem, which is how to make a robot that can handle multiple assets without having to change anything on the robot. So let's say a same customer using 4 different types of pallets, 4 different types of trolleys can still use the same robot, not a humanoid, still a robot that can automate that operation. So it's not 100% general, but it's going above in the generality that it can do more operations that a material handler would do, right? We're hoping that we'll come up with the announcement soon with some videos and everything, what we are doing. We've started doing some POCs early on with some customers. So they've started testing the units. So let's see.
I'm excited. I'm excited to see that. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Now let's end with some advice for aspiring founders. If you could go back to day one of Peer Robotics, what's one thing you'd do differently? And what's a common misconception you'd say about starting a robotics company that you wish that more people understood or knew?
I mean, there's a complete list. I think I had more mistakes than I had not to do, more not to do's than to do's at this point. But
good way of learning. Good way of learning.
Yeah. Anyways, so one most important thing would be that focus on the team early on. Like, as you also mentioned, like, I think that's the highest, like the key thing. Like, funding and all will come along. Like, you can make that happen. Building a team is going to be very, very challenging. So finding the right co-founders, finding a way that you can scale with those co-founders, finding other team members will be the early team members who can expand on different areas, understanding your capabilities and lack of thereby, and hiring or covering those like areas which you are not capable of. I think that's very critical, and having a plan for that is even more critical. I think I don't think I had a plan. I was more like just go with the flow, but I realized that it's better if you plan it out rather than experiencing on the fly, because hiring also is a time consuming task. Like, you have to go through that cycle, right? So that's the core advice. The other thing I would say is that talk to users even more. Like, whatever you think you are talking to, probably 20 more users would be better. So I think I thought I had a lot of conversations, but always learned more. Even learned today, like when I have a conversation, like if I talk to more users, I still get to learn a lot more. So I think that mindset and that focus has to be there, that we need to talk to more and more users. So I think that's what a lot of early stage founders miss on. We do talk to customers, but we don't like understand the scale we need to talk to customers to build something which scales as well. And I think that's where one feedback would be, if you have talked to 50 already, talk to another 50. Like, there's nothing wrong in that.
It's really good. Yeah, I hear that a lot. Make sure you know what your customers need, their pain points, how you're going to help them. And then you can't be building in a vacuum, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, look, Rishabh, this has been awesome. Thank you so much. I'm glad we finally got this on, because it's been a while in the background. A couple of in-person meetings and combos that we've been trying to get this going. So this is great. Where can our listeners learn more about Peer Robotics and you and connect?
No, first of all, Greg, thanks for having me. And definitely, I think it's been really insightful interacting with you over the last few months, and great that we were finally able to record this. Now, anyone can find about us at peerrobotics.ai. And then if they want to see certain things, they can also follow us on LinkedIn, where we kind of constantly post videos and everything. So hopefully the announcements would also be there. So yeah, those would be the 2 channels.
We'll link those in the show notes for everyone as well. And I'm excited to see these new developments and new announcements soon. So thank you for that. And yeah, thank you again for being on the show. I really appreciate it. And hopefully we will do this again maybe later this year. Let's hope.
Yeah, I'll see you soon in person, one of those events, and appreciate
Yes,
it, Greg. Thank you again.
100%. All right, perfect. Take care. Speak soon.
Awesome. Thank you.